What up? Welcome. Tyler here, TarverAcademy.com. I'm joined today by an expert educator, a licensed professional, the Sultan of SWAT, the Colossus of Clout, principal, athletic director, and hero among millions, I'd say.
At least.
Joshua Harrison is here to talk to you guys about some tips for new teachers. It could be for experienced teachers as well.
Could be.
It could be. You've got options here. You can be a new teacher, you can be in your first year, you can be in your fifth year, you can be in your 50th year. If so, I'm proud of you for knowing what the internet is and being able to kudos to you, Grandpa Jeffrey, leader of the grandpas. That's stupid. Okay, so we're going to talk about some advice we would give you guys for new teachers, or as new teachers. The first one is, when I started teaching, someone told me, an administrator told me, don't smile for the first 6 months. Don't smile till Christmas. I think it's what Josh was saying earlier.
Yeah, I got that advice.
Yeah.
It was an old teacher.
Yeah, it
told
was
me
an
that.
old teacher.
She said, don't smile till Christmas. I said, how come? And I smiled one day, and the kids took the room over.
Yeah.
And I realized at that point she was right.
That's
don't smile till Christmas.
That's why she said don't smile till. And
Plus, she didn't like to smile.
I think she was on the don't smile till retirement plan.
Yeah. She definitely smiled at retirement.
Yes. My advice to you is, as long as you can control the room, let your personality show through. I'd say, us two, I'd say we have some personalities you don't see often in education. Because we joke around, we have good rapport with the kids. I think we're fairly personable.
Ballers.
I don't want to say it, but I feel like it was implied,
Ballers.
right?
It was implied.
It was implied.
It's implied baller.
Implied baller. Hashtag baller even.
Hashtag baller.
I don't even know. I'm not going to jump to conclusions. But I just think that as long as you are able to do what I'm going to point out as my second bit of advice, then it's okay to smile. It's okay to talk to the kids. The problem I think a lot of kids, and the reason a lot of people say this advice is, young teachers, when they first start, they're only, they're usually, unless they're teaching lower grades, they're not too much older than the kids they're teaching. It's kids you legitimately could have been in the same school with, if you're only 4, 5, 6 years apart, as like a young 21, 22, 23-year-old. And so it's a lot easier to develop like more of a friendship relationship than like a teacher-student relationship. And that's,
you don't want to lose that respect.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes when you smile and when you try to be too close or too friendly with your students and try to get on that wavelength with them, they want to take advantage of you. They want to show disrespect, I think. Instead of respecting the fact that you are a teacher, you are an authority figure, you kind of lose that a bit. So you have to kind of build that relationship as a teacher-student first before you can show that relationship of kind of knowing more about that student.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well said. Well said. With a good accent, too.
Thank you. No script. No script.
We have the words on the dashboard. It's like playing.
No script zone.
There's a no script
zone.
No script. That's good.
Thank you.
That's a good callback. I like that. Okay, so as long as I really like how you said that. Put the teacher-student relationship first, and then you don't want to say friendship because that's getting too close, but that rapport will get there because they're going to see it's a lot easier to work from strict to being a little more loose than it is to being loose and then trying to tighten it up.
Oh, you can't tighten it up. You can't tighten it up.
It's so difficult.
Once you've given them freedom to do what you can't go back and say, now I need you guys to rein this in.
Yeah, don't act like that on a daily basis. But no, they found their limits and they're going to keep pushing those. So the tighter you make those limits early, the better.
Once you let the cats out of the cage, sometimes you just can't put them back
Sometimes you can't wrangle up those kids.
You can't wrangle up those raccoons once you let them out of the cage.
Exactly, because they're fighting with the cats.
That's right.
You let out cats and raccoons. It's going to get dangerous.
Chickens are getting eaten.
Yeah, everybody going down. You know what I'm saying?
That's how it happens.
That's right. Okay, so the second bit of advice, and we touched on it here, my advice to you, make a firm line in what you'll allow in your classroom. You can't predict every situation that's going to occur, every reaction from a student, or everything that's going to happen. But have that line and let the students clearly know when you get to this line, that's when we're not joking. That's when this you will go here, or this will happen, or you'll have these consequences. Let it be clear to those kids and stick to it. If you bend on that, or if you let one or two kids go over, they're all going to try to rush those lines. It's
that's what I'd add to it. Be consistent. If
Yes.
you're going to do it, be consistent. You can't find Johnny Joe that's your favorite, and you allow them to do something that you're not allowing the student next to do.
Yes.
You have to be consistent, because you lose all respect from your students. You lose everything that you've built if you can't be consistent in your rules.
Yeah.
If you have certain things that you say, this is my criteria, you don't follow through, this is what's going to happen, and you don't do it, they're not going to believe a word you say.
Oh, yeah. And they're going to use that every chance they get. Well, he did it, or he did it. And then you're going to be like, well, he did do it. I let him get away with it. And so it's a lot harder to justify something if you're not consistent. It's like when you're drinking ice and you're trying to get out one or two ice, and you've got the thing up here, and then you like tap it to get like one or two, but then it all just hits you in the face,
It messes your mustache up.
Every time.
Oh,
every time.
Gosh.
See, mine isn't as bad.
Right.
I just got passed.
Hey, you got passed.
What is, I guess this vehicle, they're Flintstoning it because they're going very slow. Goodness gracious.
He's old guy.
Poor little fella.
Poor guy.
Okay, so draw a firm line. What I used to do was I had a very structured discipline system. I had some papers that had like incident reports, and if a kid was acting up, they knew I just put their initials on the board. I wouldn't even stop teaching. I put their initials on the board. They'd either notice it, or if they're doing something where they're not paying attention, another kid would be like, "Hey, your initials are on the board," because they would always tell each other, and so it would just kind of correct itself. Now, if they took it past that warning, I had a form that they filled out. I'd still continue teaching. I did not disrupt my lesson because of a student. I'd go grab a form as I was teaching, set it on their desk. It was like a different color. It was like, I think, a pink form. And it was like a piece of paper that I just ran copies of. And it had the date, time, their name. They had to write about what they did, how they could have prevented it, and what they're going to do to keep it from happening again.
Is that called the I Pity the Fool form?
I Pity the Fool form.
I Pity the
Mr.
Fool.
T.
Yeah,
I
Mr.
Pity
T, I
the
Pity
Fool
the Fool.
form. That's pretty solid.
I like it.
If I was in the back, if I go back in the classroom,
Little stamp, Mr. T on it. I Pity the Fool.
and that's I'm gonna stamp it every time.
That's what I do.
So, and I give them those forms, and I told them, you're not in trouble. Nothing happens. This goes on file. So all they do is they have to fill that form out before they left. Now, they got a warning. They got the form. If they go another step, they fill out another form, and they have detention with me. And if for some reason they go another step past that, I just send them to the office. And those are my lines. 4 steps, very clear. Kids knew the procedure. And I did that because one of the big things for teaching is keeping documentation. When that parent comes up after little Johnny has gotten sent to the office 4 times, and he's like, why is my son going to the office? My son's a prince. He's never... Who calls her a prince? That's weird. Princess. Little
probably
John
someone over in Saudi Arabia.
Exactly. He's a prince, yeah.
He's a prince.
Well, he's got the money to
That's
get
true.
into whatever school he
We
wants.
let him get it, whatever.
Goodness gracious. Okay, so he... I would just say, here's, yes, he got sent to the office 4 times, but here is in Johnny's own words what he was doing wrong in class, what he should have been doing, and what he should have been trying to do afterwards. And so it really takes you off the hook as the disciplinarian, because the student is saying, I did this wrong. I should have done this. So it's very, very nice, especially when it's a teacher conference.
And I think if you kind of look at the aspect of an administrator, from an administrator's point of view, now that I've gone from a teacher to administrator, I see the fact that most administrators appreciate teachers that handle their own discipline.
Yes.
Because when I have to come in and I have to take over, then I have to start making decisions that maybe that teacher wouldn't normally make, because I have to make assumptions of what happened. We're going to 100% stick behind our teachers.
Yes.
But we want to make sure if a teacher controls their own environment, we don't really have to step in unless it's something major.
Exactly.
And so, I think if you can handle your environment, you set strict boundaries, you stick by them, you be consistent, then you will have less referrals to the office, because you handle that stuff yourself, and they know exactly what's going to happen if they do something wrong.
Exactly. And when those kids know that expectation, they rise to that level, or they meet that level. Yes, you'll have some stray ones that'll go off the hinges or do something they're not
Stray
expecting.
raccoons.
Well, stray raccoons will get out of that cage, but it's going to be less of a consistent problem, because whenever, as an administrator, if we get a ton from the teacher, we see, they can't really handle students very well. They're just sending them to us anytime there's anything at all. Or if we never get one from a teacher, a lot of times we'll think, well, either they're really great at management, or they just let them do whatever they want and they never send them,
Right.
which hopefully it's the first one. But I'm not saying you should send them just because you haven't, but a small stream, I would recommend, if you had to send like a couple kids a semester, that's normal. I would say that's even maybe a low amount. But that's what I used to send because I did try to handle all of it myself. And then, like we said in the first point, if you work out that rapport, that authority figure, and then that rapport, you'll have a lot less classroom management problems. And plus, if the kids are occupied doing work, it's a lot less chance of them goofing around. If you're letting them sit there and waste 10, 15 minutes, they're going to find something to occupy the time, and it won't be doing classwork.
Well, there's several of them that they learn what it's going to take for them to get kicked out of class, and they'll push that boundary if they know you're just going to immediately send them out because they don't want to be in there. A lot of kids don't want to be in the classroom. They want that attention. They want to get some reason to get sent out. So, sometimes the best thing to do is actually keep them in the classroom, but, manage them other ways with the writing assignments, other things like that. So.
Exactly. And don't let it look like busy work, because then they'll be ticked. But make it apply to what they're doing. That's awesome.
Excellent.
All right, last thing I want to hit you with. As a teacher, as a student, I would say I was fairly, I was above average. I'm not saying I was gifted, but I was above average when it came to intelligence. I was in classes with other kids who were like me. They cared. They goof around, but they care about their grades. They do their work.
Well, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then whenever you get to be a teacher, you might have some classes with kids that you never even knew existed in school that just don't care, or that they don't get it, or their grades behind where they should be. And so whenever you are working with them and they're trying, you're going to have kids that are way behind what you expect. Be prepared to exhibit high degrees of patience in which you may not have had to do before. You might think going in as a teacher, I'll just get to stand up there and I'll say all this in such a great way, all the kids will get it, and they'll go, oh, I get it. But then you might not anticipate that you have half a class that didn't get that standard last year because of a teacher, or they missed it because they weren't paying attention, or anything could have happened. You're going to have kids that do want to do well, but just don't get it, or are missing something that they need to proceed forward. And I recommend being patient with them.
Well, in the same boat, you have to be willing to be flexible, to modify and adjust, because you're going to find that sometimes your lessons just bomb.
Yeah.
Your lesson may be terrible, and you don't realize it. You think, I've planned a great lesson. All of a sudden, you go through it, and your kids are like, I don't get it. You may have to reteach that lesson another way that a majority of them get that.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to learn certain styles, so you got to be willing to be flexible. So I think, on that point, don't be patient, be flexible, be willing to take some chances. I'd rather see a teacher take some chances with some creative ways to get to their students rather than always just one method, because not everybody's going to get that same method.
Exactly. And the more you mix it up, the less boring your class is going to be.
For sure.
Those kids are going to have less classroom management problems because they're excited to see what they're going to do, or they're too busy learning what they're doing or how they're doing, or figuring out how to do what you expect of them, that you don't have to worry about them acting up, because they're spending all their effort and energy trying to do what they're supposed to do.
Right. Sometimes you give them a little bit of a hand in what's going on. They have a chance to come up with some ideas of what's going on in the classroom, man. It keeps them busy.
That's
keeps
a great
them excited.
teaching method.
Yeah.
Big time. And that's, if your state employs tests or Bloomboard or any of that stuff, then you know that with the test domains, that's a 4. If those kids are coming up with stuff and those kids are creating and doing stuff, that's like 3 is great teacher, 4 is phenomenal teacher. And so whenever you can train your students to think that way and to want to create and want to have a hand in their learning, I mean, you're going to be hitting all the points with their learning, with their involvement, with less classroom management issues, and then also with hitting a 4
and I think your rigor ends up getting higher because they really start thinking for themselves.
Exactly.
I mean,
that's great. I think we just figured out education.
Yeah.
Do you think?
And we use the word rigor.
We use the word rigor. And it's always good to use the word rigor. I had a facilitator at my old school that always go, yeah, but is the rigor there? And so after she'd leave, we'd all jump around.
Who's the rigor?
Who's the rigor?
Where did it come from?
Who's the rigor? It sounds like something you'd use when you're climbing a mountain or something.
Yeah.
Oh, is the rigor tightened?
Yeah, that's when, it's Winnie the Pooh's friend.
Winnie the Pooh's
rigor.
Rigor Rabbit?
It's rigor.
Roger Rabbit. That's not from Winnie the Pooh. I'm sorry.
Thank
you guys so much for tuning in to Education in Education. Here, Joshua Harrison. Josh, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me at Minor Coach 12.
Minor Coach 12. That's ER.
ER. Minor with an ER. Coach 12 on all social media. So
awesome.
Hit me up.
Check me out at tarveracademy.com. Subscribe. Hit a review. Appreciate it. Peace.